Why avoidants come back when you least expect it? There's always a strange anticipation when you're waiting for an avoidant to return. Not the kind that brings excitement, but the kind that creates constant anxiety. You find yourself checking their social media, analyzing their online activity patterns. Everything seemed predictable until it wasn't. Then radio silence. But here's where it gets even more confusing. Just when you start forgetting to check your phone, they show up. Out of nowhere, a late-night text, a random call. I saw this and thought you message. It feels like the universe playing tricks on you. And you can't help but ask, why now, when I finally stop waiting? What exactly changes in an avoidant's mind that makes them return precisely when you stopped expecting them? Today, we're not just unpacking the what. We're diving into the psychological timing mechanism. What triggers their return at the most unexpected moments? What flips that switch? And why, after all the distance they created, do they come back when you're no longer watching the door? First, let's understand something crucial. Avoidants aren't trying to hurt you with their timing. They just operate on a completely different emotional clock. When things get intense or when you express strong feelings, their instinct isn't to match your energy. It's to retreat and process alone. But here's what most people don't realize. When they disappear, they don't immediately move on. They enter a decompression phase. At first, the space feels necessary, like they can finally breathe again. But then after weeks or even months, something shifts. The very connection they escaped from starts calling to them, not because they suddenly became emotionally available, but because they finally process what you meant to them. That processing happens in their time, not yours, which is why they return when you least expect it. The real game changer isn't just about their internal timeline. It's about what you do while they're gone. See, most people keep themselves emotionally available even when the avoidant isn't there. They leave that door open, that space reserved, that hope alive. And somehow, avoidants can sense this energetic waiting room you've created for them. But when you truly let go, when you fill that space with your own life, your own growth, your own joy, it creates a massive shift in the energetic field between you. Suddenly, the avoidant doesn't feel that invisible tether anymore. They feel the genuine absence of your emotional availability. Why does this matter? Because for the first time, they experience what it's like to not have you as an option, and that reality hits different than any words you could have said. Another huge factor in their unexpected timing is something called emotional saturation points. Avoidants are masters at keeping busy after they create distance. New projects, new people, new distractions, anything that keeps them from feeling too deeply. But here's the catch. Emotions don't disappear just because you ignore them. They accumulate, like water behind a dam. And eventually, usually when the avoidant least expects it, that dam breaks. Maybe they're driving alone at night. Maybe they hear a specific song. Maybe they smell something that reminds them of you. Suddenly, all those postponed feelings flood in at once. They remember not just you, but how they felt in your presence. The safety, the warmth, the acceptance they didn't know how to receive at the time. This emotional flooding often happens during their quiet moments, which is why you'll get that 2 a.m. text or that random Tuesday afternoon call. It's not planned. It's just when their defenses finally dropped enough of the feelings to surface. But maybe the most fascinating aspect of their return timing is your own transformation. You see, avoidants have an almost supernatural ability to sense when you've genuinely moved on. Not to pretend moving on where you post happy photos, but still check if they viewed your stories. The real moving on where you forget to wonder what they're doing, where days pass without thinking of them, where you genuinely fill your life with new experiences and connections. This isn't about making them jealous or playing games. It's about a fundamental energy shift that happens when you reclaim all the emotional energy you were sending their way. Suddenly, you're not energetically reaching for them anymore. You're not holding space for their return. You're not leaving that light on. And paradoxically, that's exactly when they feel safe enough to reach out. Because now, for the first time, they're choosing to connect rather than feeling obligated to manage your emotions. Let's talk about what I call the avoidance emotional delay system. When you're in pain, expressing need, or showing vulnerability, the avoidant is in shutdown mode. They're not processing your words or feelings in real time. They're just trying to survive the emotional intensity. But months later, when they're alone and safe, those moments replay in their mind with startling clarity. They finally hear what you were really saying. They finally feel what you were feeling. They finally understand what they walked away from. This delayed processing is why they often return with a completely different energy than when they left. They'll reference conversations from months ago, apologize for things you thought they didn't even notice, or express feelings they seemed incapable of before. It's not that they become a different person. They just needed time and space to actually feel what was happening between you. The timing of their return also connects deeply to their comparison experiences. After leaving, avoidants often convince themselves that the problem was a relationship, not their patterns. So they try again with someone new, someone who seems easier, less intense, less demanding. But here's what happens. Surface-level connections feel safe at first, but they also feel empty. That new person doesn't challenge them to grow. They don't see through their walls. They don't call them out on their avoidance. And suddenly, the avoidant realizes something profound. What felt like pressure from you was actually care. What felt like demands were actually invitations to deeper connection. What felt like too much was actually just enough to matter. This realization doesn't happen immediately. It happens after they've tried to replace the depth with breadth, after they've discovered that not everyone will fight to know the real them. And that's when they return, not when you're waiting, but when they finally understood what made you different. There's also something powerful about the absence of pressure. When an avoidant leaves and you chase, beg, or constantly reach out, you confirm their deepest fear. That connection equals loss of freedom. But when you go genuinely quiet, when months pass without a word from you, something shifts in their nervous system. The absence of pressure creates space for curiosity. They start wondering what you're doing, who you're becoming, why you're not trying to fix things. This curiosity grows into a kind of reverse anxiety. Instead of fearing your closeness, they start fearing your distance. Instead of running from your attention, they start craving just a small sign that they still exist in your world. This flip usually happens when you're so focused on your own life that checking in with them doesn't even cross your mind anymore. The unexpected timing often aligns with their life transitions too. Avoidants might return during moments when their usual coping mechanisms fail them. A job loss, a family crisis, a health scare, or just a profound moment of loneliness. In these vulnerable moments, their defenses are down and they instinctively reach for the person who made them feel most seen, most held, most human. It's not about using you for comfort. It's about finally being cracked open enough to admit they need the very connection they pushed away. They return when life humbles them, when they can no longer pretend they're fine alone, when they realize that independence and isolation aren't the same thing. But here's the ultimate truth about why they come back when you least expect it. It's because that's when it's finally their choice, not their reaction. When you're no longer pulling them toward you, they can finally feel their own desire to move closer. When you're no longer waiting by the phone, they can finally feel the impulse to reach out. When you've truly let them go, they can finally choose to come back. Not from obligation, not from guilt, not from pressure, but from their own recognition of what you meant to them. The timing feels random to you because you've stopped tracking it. But for them, it's the first moment they felt free enough to actually miss you, want you, and choose you without feeling trapped by that choice. They return when you least expect it, because that's when your absence has finally taught them what your presence meant. That's when the cost of their avoidance finally outweighs their fear of connection. That's when they realize that pushing away someone who truly saw them might have been the biggest mistake they ever made. And ironically, they can only realize this when you stop trying to show them, when you stop being available to teach them, when you've genuinely moved forward with your life. They come back when you least expect it, because that's when they finally expect themselves to feel differently, and they're surprised to discover they still feel everything.